Hey everyone, welcome to the Gist Podcast.
If you're tired of being comfortable and want to take on living life from the context of 100%, fuck yeah!
Join us each week as we share lessons we're experiencing in this crazy game called life.
We invite you to play along and get your shit together.
Take responsibility for how your life is currently going, and at the same time, take on new, fun, and sometimes crazy shit.
We promise to challenge your thinking by being vulnerable, authentic, and straight up with what we're dealing with, what doesn't work, and what can.
Be warned, this is not your grandma's podcast.
All right, so we're going to get the slap out of the way.
Well, shouldn't we talk about it first?
We'll talk about it after.
You just seem so excited and eager to do this.
We'll just...
I want this content. Damn it, don't you hold out on me.
You're going to get the content. So you'll get it from a couple angles.
Just count it down.
I'll be gentle. Okay, so this one, I want to... Yeah, because I am a lefty.
Fuck. I'm not prepared for this side of my face. Now I got emotions coming up from here.
Okay, ready?
Just count me down to 3.
Why would I come
Just
to
do it. Oh, God. There's always like a ringing and a burning feeling. Oh, God, I hate that so much. You know, I've been slapped.
What a way to start a podcast. He can't even hold it in. He's laughing so hard.
Oh, it's so funny. It's so funny. Ha ha. I'm emotional right now, guys, so I'm sorry I can't be on your level, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. There is something so emotionally triggering about being slapped by another man that I don't know how to act.
People are so reactive to things.
I'm surprised anybody would have found that funny. I mean, I guess, yeah, me hurting myself is kind of funny.
Okay, so we have a guest, and I just slapped him.
My face hurts now. It's burning.
Bring your mic a little closer. Unfortunately, Vern couldn't make it today this morning, and Wakefield, I guess, wasn't also able to make it, and it's all good. So I am here with my brother, and my brother is he's done a lot. He is one of the oldest competitive athletes in the province when it comes to parkour, and has been training and coaching parkour for the last 10 years. In his free time, he helps run a stunt group called Optimal Movement. It's a motley crew of free runners, acrobats, and tracers, and they have performed all over Alberta so far. Through all of that, Patrick has experienced some big failures in his competition performances. He saw what happens when you do what you love from the place of having to win versus the love of doing it. He's traveled and explored Europe, East Asia, and Japan, and got pulled into a reality TV show after landing in Japan. He ended up having a group of people with cameras follow him around, recording everything he did for most of his trip. In a past life, he commanded his own alien legion in the Great Wars of the Caprulo sector in the Diamond Leagues of StarCraft.
Oh, I never said that.
And at his core, Patrick loves to entertain, loves to explore, and will always try something new, at least once.
Damn straight.
Yeah, so welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm really excited about everything you're doing here.
Yeah, I saw that when you came in, and Patrick actually thought we were recording in the other room, which
with no mics,
which had no mics, and he's like, and he was still very excited about it.
It actually looks cool out there.
Yeah.
So I'm just like,
he's
this
like,
is way better than my
so
office.
this is what we're doing, eh? Like, no, over here.
Yeah, this is awesome, dude. Great setup. I love to see this growing. I'll be honest, like in the beginning, I didn't think too much about it. I'm just like, it's one of David's like crazy side projects that he's doing, because you're always up to something.
Yeah.
Some sort of creative ambition, and I'm just like, I'll support him.
Oh,
for however long this will last. But it's really grown into something that I've been impressed with. I've been listening to them pretty regularly. And, the funniest thing was I never really was into this sort of thing until after Mike moved away.
Right.
And he was always trying to get me to watch Joe Rogan. He's like, you gotta listen to this Joe Rogan podcast. You gotta watch this Joe Rogan podcast. And I was always like, yeah, I'll get to it. And it's because he was a tile setter, so I guess he had a lot of time to just do like a monotonous job.
Yeah, have something in the background.
Yeah, just have something in the background. And with my work, it was usually like problem solving oriented. So I didn't have like a lot of attention I could have diverted to, information being explained to me from like a podcast. Or at least that was the story I told myself. And then after he moved away, I missed him a ton, and I know he's listening to this right now, or he will be eventually.
It's
Miss you,
not
buddy.
live.
Miss you, buddy.
Where is he again?
He's in Gabriola Island.
Nice.
Yeah, really cool place. Anyways, I just started watching them, and wow, it was actually extremely informative, especially now with the political atmosphere the way it is, and coming from a group of people that was placing an emphasis on not knowing anything about global politics, and it seems kind of scary being thrusted into like the craziness that's going on right now. So when they talk about it, or he has guests on to talk about it, it's just like, these are topics that I'm interested in, but don't know how to talk about with other people maybe, because it's always so sensitive.
Right.
And I have my own opinions, but I realize I have biases, and it's always nice to see like him bring on professionals or people with accolades. Like he had Neil deGrasse Tyson, he had Elon Musk, like he had so many fascinating people that I've never seen do any live interviews before. Anyways, long
So
story short.
one of the biggest reasons for the Just Life and this podcast as part of the medium for us telling story is to get under people who are not known yet, who are up to some pretty cool stuff, and have never really been given the chance, or really knew how, or didn't even realize it was a thing to actually drive and create more awareness around what they're up to, what they've done, their past experiences. And Calgary is a rich cross section of people and talent and story, and so this is why we're doing the Just Life. We'll be doing we're doing a performance at Theatre Grand to bring more of the poetry to places where it wouldn't normally have a presence. And this is part of many initiatives that we're looking to create a platform for storytelling. So whether it's the podcast, whether it's a documentary, the video that we create, I'm really interested and curious about what it would look like to create a comic book that starts to showcase and create some of these stories from people. And I have no idea what that looks like, but
It's a clever idea.
yeah, I think, and there are so many of those, and given my background, it just seemed like a really natural fit to explore it and try and find out. And then having people like Aaron, Aaron's managed to, not manage, but he takes on the audio so that I don't have to manage it, and then I can actually be with people, which was really my big thing right now, is to be with people, to understand people, to be able to understand myself, and inside of starting to understand people. So that's why we're doing what we're doing here. Anyways, so I slapped my brother at the beginning of the episode.
I feel better now. It doesn't hurt anymore.
Yeah, nice.
The ringing's gone.
I gotta say there is something about the act of doing that is uncomfortable on my side, and at the same time very liberating. Validating.
You bitch.
Well, not necessarily that. It's just like, I don't know. It is a very visceral thing. I mean, certainly visceral on your side, because you're the one experiencing the tingles.
Plus, I know you're still at risk for it too. So when you get to dish it out, you're like, man, I really don't want to feel this.
Yeah,
Gives you motivation not to make a mistake.
It totally does, because I can feel it in my hand, right? Like, it's not like it doesn't hurt my hand.
Oh my God, you guys are hurting your hand slapping me. I thought we talked about this rule. I'm just kidding. Not hitting too hard, but I mean, if you're hitting me so hard that your hand hurts, I feel like that.
I wouldn't say it hurts, but I feel
it. Yeah, you feel the tingle.
So I slapped my brother, and it was super fun, and there was a reason behind it. We had this. We set up a contract. Where did that come from again?
Yeah, so there was an audiobook that I heard about from a podcast called The School of Greatness. And the audiobook is a book as well. It's Atomic Habits. I don't actually remember the author's name. I feel kind of foolish right now. But
I'll post it though.
Yeah, it's an amazing audiobook, and it's given me so much information and tools to just sort of redefine my life. Because I'm in my 30s now, and I have many of the same, habits that I've had since high school. Staying up late and not prioritizing my time, and I'm just kind of done with it. But the problem is, you you start these bad habits, and the bad habits happen because they're frictionless. You just there's no consequences for doing the bad habit. You don't really notice the consequences until maybe far later in life. Let's just say if it's bad eating, for example, or poor sleeping,
right,
or not exercising regularly. In the moment when you make those decisions, there's no real consequence for it. In fact, there's usually a perk, because now you don't have to exercise, or now you don't have to get out of bed.
I'm going to watch some Netflix.
Watch some Netflix. Yes, you kind of get that instant gratification as opposed to the delayed gratification. So I was just looking for some book or some new concept or approach, not even necessarily new, because I wouldn't say these are new. And in that audiobook, he never makes that claim either, but it's kind of like he's presenting the same information, but in a fresh way that's easy for me to understand. And yeah, it's essentially like adding friction to the bad habits so that the good habits are technically the easier choice, and that's kind of, the habit contract is one of many methods that he has to accomplish this. And the idea is you make an agreement with somebody that is your accountability partner. That way, they also hold you to your word, because I'm guilty for this, but there's many times where I'll say I'll do something, and then when push comes to shove, I don't do it, and so I sort of dishonor my word, and I get to a point where I can no longer trust myself, and that's
and you
serious.
Don't even realize that you can't trust yourself, because you just keep doing it. You're running the operating system, and you're wondering why it's not working. Why isn't anything working?
And why do I feel so bad?
And why do you feel so bad?
I don't understand, and it's easy because you're just not honoring your word. You're not acting in integrity, and that has been a really chief thing for me, because in the podcast School of Greatness, he talks about defining your core values. And this is like, I don't know, you probably know about all this already, but for me, this is like it's a different side of personal development, because I've been really focusing on the spiritual side, with parkour and with certain tantra practices and some Buddhism and, Vipassana meditation and, the music festival scene, which I'm kind of over now. I was looking more in experiential based, wisdom. And then when we did, you probably remember that group that we were part of for a brief period of time. We went to their workshops, and they had...
This was local?
Yeah, I can't believe I can't remember what they're called now, but you were really about them for a while. And we were trying to get mom and dad on them.
You talking about Landmark?
Yes. Oh, God. I can't even remember. Landmark had a pretty big impact on me too, and it was more of the intellectualized side of being a better person.
Yeah.
But I haven't dabbled as much in, like, you've made vision boards, and you've done, you've paid for courses, and you've worked with, I think, mentors or life coaches.
Lots of coaches.
Yeah, I never really done that, So this is kind of a new thing for me. But there's like defining core values. What are your ethics? Like, these are deep questions that take a lot of time to think about.
So long story short, and I'm not digging on you.
Oh, yes, sir.
But I am digging on you.
Okay.
So we ended up, what came out of there was this contract, right?
Yeah.
And you saw something for yourself as like an access point for you to take on something that you've not been able to take on powerfully in your world for forever, really.
For a really long time, yes.
And adding a level of accountability. Now, was the slapping, that was created by us? That wasn't part of...
Well, yeah. The idea was just to like come up with a consequence that was quick and painful, but not like so painful that it was like unbearable.
That you don't want to do it again.
That I don't want to do it, because like in the book Atomic Habits, he talks about creating friction for your bad habits. And so I needed it to be immediate friction, so that basically the alternative, doing the good habit, was way more preferable than enduring the consequences of sort of binging the bad habit. And so in my case, it was simple. It's like, get up at 8 a.m. and do some stretching and, push-ups in the morning, just 10 push-ups in the morning. And then, meditate.
But the real thing for you was to get up early.
was to get up early,
That's your biggest milestone that you're really hurdle that you're really wanting to hit, right? Because you've not. No. You're quote unquote the night owl.
Well, and it was like I'd wake up early just to go back to bed. So it's like I'd wake up, 8 a.m. I've deserved 30 minutes snooze, and then it'd be like 2 hours go by. I'd wake up like, oh shit,
nice.
Yeah. So having to like send that, and I had to send David a video of me doing push-ups, which was like, I have to be awake now. I can't go back to bed.
You can't say you did it.
Yeah, and I'm not going to do push-ups and go back to bed because that is so stupid and lame. Then I'm just like, at what point am I like dishonoring my word again?
Well, and at the end, really at the end of the day, when that, if you were to take that action, you are not honoring yourself, and that self-worth or the lack thereof that starts to show up, man, that is not a thing that you want to carry around.
No.
And you're carrying it around, and it's about you. And it's so like the fingers are always pointing at you all the time because you know what you did.
Yeah.
Whether you are willing to listen to it or hear it or not.
Yeah, and I mean, you're my accountability partner, but I can't be like, David will take care of me, or I'll do things to avoid having, like, you're my new dad or
Hence
something.
the slap.
Yeah.
So it was something that was visceral, that got you, that knocked some sense into what it was, like reminded you of what the game is that you're playing.
Well, yeah, because the first week I made no mistakes.
Yeah,
because
totally.
the idea of
It's
getting
like, I got
slapped
this.
was really bad. And then I always have to pay him $5, which sucks too, because it's just not a lot of money, but it's
In
still
the
money.
moment.
Yeah, that's gone. And it's not just Dave. My other friend Rob is part of this, so I technically get slapped by 2 people, and I have to pay $5 to 2 people. So like when I had to endure it with Rob, I hated it so much. And then the thought of I got to do this another time,
Knowing that's coming
then
again.
another one's coming again. Then it's like I can't afford to make these mistakes anymore because this sucks so much worse than just getting up and doing all my stuff. And the fact is, getting up early and having done my morning ritual has been such a rewarding and nurturing thing that it's like, it's so funny. I'm like, why couldn't I have started this sooner? But because, the bad habits were easy to binge, and now the bad habits suck. They're worse. They're way worse. Yeah. So like, there's no way I want to.
You're actually seeing it from a different lens.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that it's actually a disservice, even though you've created for so long that it's been
my go-to.
It's the thing. It's who you are. It's what you do.
It's my identity.
And getting that actually is not the case. So you did a lot of traveling, and I really enjoy the stories you tell about your trip into Asia and. Without going into the stories too much and just kind of like giving some top level
talk about it.
Some top level context, I'd really love to know what that created for you, what that gave you. And when did that happen? How long ago was that?
That was in 2013. So a little more than five years ago or so.
Yeah.
Hitting, I guess, 6. Oh God,
Getting older, man.
Yeah, it's just like it feels like it was just last year, and I'm like, can't wait to get back out there. I'm just gonna be in Calgary for a little bit, save up some money, and go back out there, and then
it's been 5 years.
Yeah, almost a decade, yeah, or at least half a decade. So yeah, 2013, I did all that, and it actually just started out as a bet with a friend because we always talked about going, and we never did it. So in 2012, it's like, why don't we just buy the tickets in 2013, and then we'll save up money to that point, and it's like, if we don't go, we just lost all that money. So I guess in a way,
it's another version of the slap.
Totally. I guess in a way, we kind of created this consequence if we didn't follow through with this thing that we wanted to do, and it worked. It ended up working, because.
But what happened?
Well, for me in general, I guess it was just like learning how to be an independent human being and maybe plan ahead a little bit. Because there were some situations I found myself in that could have been avoided if I had just put some thought into what I was doing.
Versus just running.
Instead of just going by the seat of my pants, and just flying by.
Yeah, because something happened to your buddy, right?
He obliterated his knee because Matt, my friend, had just opened up the parkour gym, the very first one here in Calgary. And I guess during... because Nick was part of renovating it and making it all happen, and he was just burning himself out. And so then he was part of the demo team, and he was just demonstrating the obstacles that they created to all the customers or clientele that were coming to check it out. And he just, it must not have been a great demonstration either, because I guess he did something very simple off of this obstacle that, frankly speaking, seemed to have hurt a lot of people.
Right, probably shouldn't have
been.
They
called it the rocket box, but it took so many people's legs and knees and ankles out.
Oh my goodness, that's horrible.
And it didn't even look that dangerous, but I think people just would tackle it when they were too tired. And that was the case for Nick. He took it, and he must have been exhausted, and it was a very simple accident, but changed his life forever, and that was 3 days before we had to leave.
Nice.
And he did all the planning. All the planning. He had everything figured out, and I was just going to hang out with him and let him call all the shots. Kind of like what we did when we were running that restaurant. Yeah.
You were just looking for another bigger brother.
Yeah, dude.
Hey, man, can you take care of me while I have fun?
He's younger than me, too, by 6 years.
Oh, that's so great.
Exactly. What
So to give you some context, Patrick is my youngest brother of two brothers, one of which is no longer around. And so there was always that era of it's okay, they've got me. Or like I don't have to worry about it too much.
pretty much my whole life, actually.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it also turned into it can turn into a handicap if you don't
Codependency.
if you don't like step into and own your own path, your own direction, your own journey, right? So he obliterated his knee, and now you're going.
Yeah.
To Japan.
Oh yeah. And
By
no one
yourself.
speaks English. Everybody said they speak English, but they don't. I went to the airport, the Narita airport, and there's no translators, there's nothing. I was just flabbergasted by how much those TV shows lied to me, because I thought for sure, from all the cartoons I've watched and from all the TV,
Those were definite sources like that you could rely on for
Not really.
information.
I feel people warned me about that. They're like, Patrick, Japan isn't like those cartoons you watch. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, they are.
So you got there, and right away, like magic, the magic of the journey of the adventure began for you.
Actually, it was more like horrible worry and anxiety, because like I was on the airport, or I was in the airplane, and I think it was like halfway on the airplane ride, I realized I have no idea what I'm doing when I land. I got to figure this out. Like, how do I get my bullet train pass? How do I figure out where I'm staying? Because Nick had told me where the hostel was, but I had no idea how to get to it. And I didn't speak any Japanese.
Was Google Maps the thing back then, like that
It
you were
was
easy to access?
It was, but it didn't help me find anything, man.
Right.
Like, I don't know
Oh,
why
that's
I was
awesome.
so incompetent, but I was just, because I remember, well, I'll get into it later, but I was so useless on my own. Like, it was actually shocking. And so when I landed in the airport and I'm sitting and waiting for my luggage to show up in that little, conveyor belt, I got hit with this huge case of anxiety. And I guess you could say I was out of my comfort zone for sure at that point. Because I guess at that whole point I was like, yeah, willy-nilly about it. And then suddenly it dawned on me. I'm like, I'm on my own in another country where no one speaks English, or at least no one I can see here speaking English, and I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And,
Oh man.
yeah. So that was bad. I felt really bad. And so I was kind of nervously, maybe I looked like a spectacle as far as I know, because that's when the TV crew came. They just found me. And I feel like they might have been obvious.
Not just a random person, Samaritan, but a fucking TV crew
That was
found
really
you.
intimidating, yeah. Because they cornered me. It wasn't even like they
cameras
found
and
me.
everything.
Yeah, they just like surrounded me and like stuck mics in my face and started asking me when I was in Japan and what I'm doing here. And I just thought they were like some news station. They're just desperate for some kind of story. Oh, a white guy, let's ask him why he's here. Like,
So what happened after that?
I told them, because at this point in my career with parkour, I kind of had an ego. And this didn't help my ego either, I'll tell you, man. And so I was like, I do parkour. I'm a parkour athlete. And of course, they have no idea what that is.
It was how you defined yourself.
Yeah.
Really.
And it's still a big part of my identity, but it's less about the, look how great I am. And
It's
more
not about parkour, but what it gives you.
But
really.
what it supplied for me,
Yeah.
So yeah, and they're just like, can you demonstrate? And it's like an airport. You've been to an airport before. It's mostly just open space with some escalators. And I'm like, I could jump off this escalator, maybe. Like, I didn't want to do anything that was really dangerous, because also at that time my parkour level wasn't that high. I was better, but it still wasn't nowhere near where I'm at right now. And I was like, well, what would be the most entertaining thing? Well, what does everybody want to see? Everybody wants to see backflip. It's all people care about. They just want to see a backflip. If you show them a backflip, they'll lose their mind. And if you show it to them again, they don't care. They've lost complete interest. That's why I have a rule where I'll only do it once.
It's a one-time thing.
And people get so annoyed or mad at me because I'll just do it once and they'll rip out their phone and be like, can you do it again? Can you do it again? And I'm sorry, that was just a one-time show only. I'll do it again for $5. And that's when they're just like, they just leave. Or they'll call me a name. We had one woman so mad at us, she was like insulting, like flinging insults at us.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, why?
People are crazy.
So entitled sometimes. But I just did this terrible backflip. Mind you, I was on an airplane for 9 hours. So it was like,
Yeah, that didn't help.
no, so I stuck the landing, but it was gross. And everything looked bad. I could only imagine how horrible it was. But they lost their mind. They're like, They're like, and everyone else in the airport was like, I don't know, watching and in amazement too. And it did not help my ego, because at that point I felt like, yeah, that's right,
That's
everybody.
right. I'm here. I have arrived.
I have arrived. And so then they just asked, well, where am I going? What am I doing? I'm like, well, I'm struggling to find how to get my bullet pass. Like, how do I get my bullet pass? And they're just like, oh, well, we can help you with that. Because one of them was a translator, right? So she just helped me get all of my shit in order. It was awesome. And she got me on the bullet train. But the thing that weirded me out was they came with me. And I'm like, okay, this interview is going on for a really long time.
Are you guys going the same direction I am?
Yeah. Honestly, I told myself that story. I had this, because I never asked them what this was.
Right.
I just assumed it was this TV interview. And I'm like, wow, these are some dedicated journalists. Because I even remember passing out on the bullet train and then waking up, and they had all their cameras fixed on me, and they're just watching me. And I'm just like, you're watching me sleeping. And it's just, how entertaining could that possibly be? But
so you're on the bullet train, and you're on your way to your hostel. You got to your hostel.
No, I got lost, and they refused to help me. They wouldn't tell me how to get to my hostel, because what I didn't know at the time was they're just kind of, taking video of me doing what I should be doing naturally. The idea was that I wasn't supposed to know that they were there. They were supposed to just be the fly on the wall, so to speak. But I knew that they were there, and I didn't know what this was. So I was always looking at them, being like...
So you still didn't know why they were filming?
Yes, and I'm like, can you guys help me?
And you never asked?
No. I think I asked, but I wasn't listening.
No, you probably didn't ask.
I was more convinced of my story.
Most of us would likely not have asked. It just felt like we need to know that we should already know what's going on. You don't want to look like an idiot.
At this point, I'm too afraid to ask.
That's right. That's so great.
Yeah, so I couldn't find my hostel. I was lost for 30 or 40 minutes until they finally were like, that way, turn that way.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm like, oh, that way? Oh, okay.
It was like a game for them.
Yeah, it was. And then when it was over and I was finally in my hostel, it was an exhausting day. And I'm like, that was fun. That was definitely fresh. I'm kind of excited to see what else Japan has to offer. And now that I was at my home base, I was feeling better, more confident, And then I woke up in the morning. Actually, they woke me up in the morning. The guy that ran the hostel. No, the guy, he woke me up and he's like, these people out here waiting for you. What? And I go out there and it's the same people, the same group of people. And I'm like, what is going on here? And they're like, this is a TV show. Like, you agreed that we would follow you while you were in Japan. And they were going to follow me the whole time. The whole, week and a half. Well, they didn't actually. I could get to that. That's actually my fault. And that's also a funny story. But at first I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. Because it just was so weird and fast and sudden. And then I'll never forget this dude that was there. And he's like, look, man, if you don't want them to follow you around, just tell them to go away and they'll go away. But how often does this happen to people? And I thought about it and I'm like, well, this never happened to me before.
Well, and you probably felt obligated.
Yeah, there was a sense of obligation.
Yeah, totally.
But the obligation was like a secondary feeling over, I could be on TV.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to do this. Yeah, and then they followed me around, and it was crazy. I used to do funny things, like the camera guy had to always film me no matter what. That was his job. And so I would mess with him on purpose, because all of them didn't speak English except for the one translator. So I would just they'd ask me these really deep questions about parkour or why I do it, and I'd go into this philosophical interpretation I have, and it would get deep. I get really connected to my heart when I talk about this. So I'd express, how it helped me conquer my fears and all these other things. And then she would just be like, you could see that she was touched. She's like, oh. And then she'd try translating it to everybody. And as they're all listening, they're all like, oh. I'd hear them making little sounds. I'm like, yeah, that's right.
That's right.
That's right. But I'd wait for the cameraman to be distracted, because then he'd start listening to what she was saying. And then I just run away as fast as I could. And then this dude, every time I turn around, this dude would be right on my ass. It was so hard to lose him. And I'd climb up over buildings and I'd jump over things, and he'd try to film me while I was doing it.
He wasn't climbing stuff though.
He was trying to.
Dude,
with a huge, heavy camera, man.
You needed somebody recording the camera guy.
Yeah.
That would have been priceless.
That guy was way cooler. Yeah, he was dedicated. I'll give him that much. And it wasn't one of those little small cameras. This is one of those big TV ones that look like they weigh 80 pounds or something. And they're probably, so expensive. So if you drop it, it's way too much money. But this guy would follow me. I remember at one time at Rainbow Bridge where I did it for the second time, I knew that he was ready for it and he was on me. I couldn't lose the dude. But it was a ton of fun. And at the end of it, even though we couldn't speak the same language, I felt that when we talked to each other, because he would just talk in Japanese and I would talk to him in English, it felt like we understood each other. It was so hard to explain. And then we'd high five, instinctively. It's I said what I wanted to say, he said what he wanted to say. And without looking at any body language cues, we just both high five, we knew what we were talking about.
And it wasn't a Dumb and Dumber one where you missed?
Maybe. Those might have happened.
Oh, that's really great. So was there anything else that really memorable inside of Japan?
Well, they kept pressuring me to do every bloody 10 or 20 minutes. They'd be like, "Are you going to do any parkour? Are you going to do any parkour? Are you going to do any parkour?" It never stopped. There was never any moment of rest. And so I was constantly trying to find new places where I could just, jam. I could do like a session, or I could come up with a movement line or whatever. Because every time I did it, I'd always attract a crowd of people. And then these people would want to get their photos with me and stuff, which was kind of a dream of mine.
So you're a bit of a celebrity out there.
Yeah, there's like these little kids be like, "We want to get your photo." In fact, there was a kid that I almost destroyed because I did this front flip and he came running out of nowhere. And I saw that he was coming, so I untucked at the last second so I'd land on my back. And so I humiliated myself in front of a big group of people, but I didn't destroy this little child that was running through, right? And when they saw me, they're like, "Oh!" And then they wanted to get their photo with me, so I got a photo with them, and I'm like, it's feeling so cool, and I'm big time. And then I remember one day on the Rainbow Bridge, right next to this like museum that they had, where there's like this giant Gundam, those big like giant robots that they have. They wanted me to do parkour again, and I'm just like already feeling pretty haggard because it's been 3 or 4 days of this. And then I looked at this jump, it was so foolish of me. I looked at it and I'm like, I don't know if I can make this. I feel like it might be too big, or I might be feeling too rough right now. But they kept being like, yeah. And just holding the camera, just like, we're ready to film you do this. And I'm like, okay, fine, let's just do this. And I went for it, and I didn't make it. I did not make it. I smashed my knee right into the edge of the concrete, and when I pulled my pant leg up, there was a huge gnarly gash, like just a laceration. There was no like destruction of like my joints or anything, but I got cut really bad. And then it just started pouring blood down my leg because it went right to the bone. It was just like, it was a deep cut. So they're like, they were not expecting me to hurt myself.
Did you have insurance?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely I did. I would never. See, Nick at least gave me enough, foresight to plan for that.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
No, I had insurance, but they were like, "Uh-oh, this dude is a
Okay,
huge
episode's
liability
over."
now." Yeah. They're like, they got me a little Band-Aid and they put it on my knee and they're like, "Daijobu," and then I never heard from them. Just
They disappeared.
Well, they asked me for all my footage that I took because every now and then I get them to record things on my GoPro from my Instagram feed. But they asked me for my footage, and then that was it. And then they told me later on, about a week or two later, they couldn't air the episode because I hurt myself. And it was just like this big legal thing. And I'm like, I was so devastated. I was so choked. I felt so betrayed. I'm like, you guys are supposed to be with me while I traveled around Japan. And and then I went right back into my old way of thinking. I didn't want to leave Tokyo because I was injured and I was hobbling around. But I was also trying to convince myself it wasn't that serious, so I didn't need to go to the hospital.
Right.
So I didn't wait until eventually I had to go to Bangkok, and then I got super infected deliberately by the Bangkok hospital, because I went to one of these hospitals there and they started sticking these iodine things inside of my knee. I have a video of it.
I
It's
remember
so gnarly.
that video. That was nasty, actually.
Yeah, deliberately got infected, and then I was hospitalized for a week. So I went from like crazy high to like woo,
In Bangkok,
in Bangkok.
of all places.
Of all places.
Probably would have been better to do that in Japan.
Yeah, man, it just was a great example of I should have done something sooner about this instead of, living my emotion of being like sad or lonely or
Justifying.
Yeah, I had this racket going where I was like, it was their fault for me getting hurt.
Right, so I shouldn't do anything about
So
it.
I shouldn't do anything about it until it's like, I have to. Yeah, man.
So, you had, I love that story. I love what it created as like the next path in your journey. There was a big leap that you took inside of uncertainty, and you played there. And I know from speaking about it before your trip and after your trip that there was a lot that you grappled with before you were going, and that you mentioned that you grappling with as you were there, and then what happened in Bangkok. And Bangkok, there was a few things that happened in Bangkok that just kind of reinforced probably why I shouldn't have done this. Why am I here? In doing your trip and in looking at it now, what was that thing that it did for you? There was almost like a new birthing of you as a person when you came back from that. What died and what got replaced in that trip for you?
I want to say this. you guys can censor this if you want, but I think Bitch Patrick died.
Bitch Patrick?
Bitch Patrick died because Bitch Patrick was always bitching out on everything because it was always too scary.
Right.
And
I remember that in Germany.
oh God, did Dad ever tell you that story about Italy where I refused to go to the hospital because I was scared?
Yeah.
What an embarrassing moment.
Because you were to do that on your own.
I was supposed to do that on my own.
That's right. And you're
I
like, I
didn't know how to
can't do it on my own.
Yeah, and my dad
So
was not impressed.
Bitch Patrick died.
Bitch Patrick died. Yeah, I was always afraid, and I never liked taking risks. And in a large part, parkour helped me with that because parkour is inherently about facing your mental barriers. But this was a huge mental barrier because this was like I had to do everything on my own, and then I was in a place where there was no one to help me. And I even remember wanting to give up a bunch of times. And I even remember talking to you on Facebook, and you were telling me, "Don't give up. Just keep persevering, keep pushing through." And every time I did, I was like, "Oh, I'm so glad I made that decision instead of just quit."
Yeah.
You know. And that's what it was. It was like, I can do this. Like every time I'd fail and I didn't give up and I tried again and again and again, eventually I would find a way to succeed. And it would be this amazing experience. And I grew from it. And I just felt like I'm maturing as an adult. And I started really realizing that I can do this, you know?
Yeah. What a great example of what it can look like when you just step inside of uncertainty, do the thing that you are most afraid of, and then witness what happens when you do. And that it might not actually go the way you want it to go or the way you have it idealized in your mind, but that there is something huge in growth for you as an individual, for all of us as an individual, that happens when you step in.
Yeah.
So great. I'm just going to... Yesterday, I did my first improv class, but not really.
Like acting improv?
Improv.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm actually doing that today, this afternoon.
Are you?
Yeah, the Kinko Nuts.
I went to Loose Moose, and for the most part, other than some exercises they did at the very beginning, I just sat in the theater watching and observing. For those same reasons, well, if I do that, one, I don't know what I'm doing. And if I do that, I might look silly, which is idiotic and ironic because that's the whole point of improv, is to be as outrageous as possible.
But your programming is to always look good no matter what.
That's right. And so I kept myself safe. Yeah. Now I will go there again, and it is a process. So really, what I hear in this episode, and the biggest takeaway for everybody listening is like, there's a thing that you're really curious about, interested in, want to know more about, and it is a process, period. Mm-hmm. It is always a process to get to wherever it is that it will bring you if you allow it. And that's it. So just embrace the process.
And the crazy thing is, like, just touching on what you said about, you know, it might not go the way you expected to or the way you played it out in your head. It might like end up as like a spectacular failure that like pushes you in a totally different path that you realize was what you wanted to do the whole time. And you had no concept of it. It was totally off your radar. You didn't even know that you didn't know about it. But because you had this great experience or this maybe not so great experience trying something new that made you uncomfortable, it like sent you off on a totally different direction that otherwise might not have happened if you had never at least tried.
Yeah.
Or you might have failed and then learned, and from that learning lesson continued, and you know, eventually maybe it does conceptualize the way that you wanted it to. And that's just exciting, you know, thinking about it now.
Totally. So if somebody wanted to reach out and connect with you, how would they find you?
Probably on Instagram.
And what's your Instagram handle?
It's Blinkered Biggie.
Blinkered Biggie.
Or you can find us on just Optimal Movement, and that's generally the best way of getting a hold of us. Or you can email us at stunts@optimalmovement.ca. And that's generally the best way of getting a hold of us if you're interested in any of the stuff that we talked about, or learning maybe about movement disciplines or how to reclaim sovereignty over your body. It's a big community in Calgary, and it's growing every day. And it helped change my life for the better. So
that's so great.
Should try it.
Well, thanks so much for coming and playing. We'll have you again when we have some more people here, and
just to like add my little input.
Absolutely. Well, you've always got something really great to contribute. So
we have a podcast talking about flat Earth.
Well, we'll see what that looks like.
Just kidding, dude.
So thanks for listening. Have a great Saturday. We'll see you next week.
Cue music.